The defense is there. I think we can clean up the little things, offensive rebound and back cutting, but good first day for sure.
Devin Booker from Team USA, Suns guard, in the starting lineup last night, played 20 minutes, 4 of 6 from the field, 9 points, 2 boards, 2 assists, and the American team in their first exhibition beats Team Canada 86-72 up in Vegas. And look, I think the Canadian team wanted to add a little heat. At least Dylan Brooks did. He always wants to add some sort of heat to it. By the way, did you see Dylan Brooks, the video of him walking right in front of Devin Booker while he was doing media availability?
No.
Yes.
Dylan Brooks is such a... Ugh.
He got back cut at least once, trying to be over-aggressive, and LeBron just whoop.
Yeah. Look, it's an exhibition game. I think everybody involved, really on both sides, but really on the American side, was talking about how disjointed everything was offensively. The good thing about that is when you've got that many good offensive players, you can be disjointed and still shoot over 50% from the floor, which they did. And against a really good Canadian squad, Kevin, the defense, you heard Devin Booker say, the defense was there, held them to under 34% shooting, and they looked disjointed all night.
Yeah, again, they didn't play their starters very much either, even less than the Americans, so it's really hard to tell. But I will say I don't put much stock in that game because I think once you start playing the European teams especially, the style becomes much different, and they're going to move the ball a lot more, so your defense is going to be strained a little bit, and then your offense becomes more important. Like, I think the offense will get a lot better. A lot of it was like LeBron and AD just making silly little passes out of bounds, thinking a guy's going to move into a certain spot where they don't or something like that. To me, I mean, the big takeaways are how, I guess, Steve Kerr used the lineups. Again, not by minutes necessarily, but how he was adjusting. The big duo of Davis and Bam was super interesting to me. Joel Embiid getting in foul trouble and just not looking great was interesting to me.
He fouled out in 12 minutes, and he fouled out with 5:01 to go in the third quarter of that game.
Yeah. If you want to get into the Book and Anthony Edwards stuff, I think that's fascinating because there was all this discussion about Ant's, I'm number one. He comes off the bench basically behind Book. Minnesota fans are like, well, I don't understand why he's behind Devin Booker. And the reason is once they get into the tougher games against better teams, how Anthony Edwards plays is not going to work as well, and how Devin Booker does is. And I think that's an interesting discussion and point to watch as we go through games here.
Yeah, I wonder if that does shift, but Book was in the starting 5. I assumed it would be Edwards. That could be a fluid situation.
Yeah.
But Steve Kerr anointed at one point months ago Anthony Edwards as the number one option. That was coming off the World Cup team. And he was definitely the number one option on that team that did not win a medal, lost to that Canadian team in the bronze medal game. But Steve Kerr also, as the head coach of Team USA, said this earlier this week about Devin Booker.
Book was great in Tokyo. He's the perfect example of a guy who, in an NBA game, he's going to get 20 shots every night. And in FIBA, in 21 in Tokyo, he was more of a defender, ball mover, but did a great job and was one of our key players. So that's why he's back here. We knew how much we needed him, and I'm so impressed with Book's ability to understand that, recognize the role change, but still, hit the big shot and be, looking forward to a big moment. So Book's a perfect FIBA guy.
Here's another thing that's interesting about this roster construction and this whole process of getting acclimated to each other is the team that they played last night, the Canadian team, was basically the same team that Canada put out there for that bronze medal game in the FIBA World Cup last summer. The FIBA World Cup, in terms of American prestige, at least how the players treat it, they don't get the same level of participation.
No.
There's only 2 guys back from that team. It's Anthony Edwards, and I think Tyrese Halliburton was on that team as well. Everybody else is new. Now, these are the best players in the world, but there is an element with the American roster that other teams don't have that same level of buildup because they do have more together international experience. I'm very curious to see what that looks like in the next 3 or 4 exhibition games.
Yeah, I think the post game, if you watch on FS1 with LeBron and Steph Curry, was about you guys wanting to play together. You're getting that chance now. And LeBron was basically like, I missed him in the corner once. We finally connected. Steph threw him a lob later in the game. But like the best players in the world need to get a couple weeks under their belt at least. And the Americans deal with this every time, and we forget about how important continuity is. And like Suns fans should know how that team this past year looked when you just throw stars together. It's complicated. And so we're going to have to see how this works. I honestly think they're going to have to chop down the rotation a bit just to get more continuity, and that's going to leave guys on the outside looking in of this thing.
Is it as much of a concern in the modern world when so many international players, so many good international players are playing in the NBA now and aren't with their national teams and as much?
I was thinking that same thing. It's not the same as it used to be. And if you remember back in the days before professionals were playing in the Olympics or in these international competitions, if you were going up against the Soviet Union, you were going up against a team that played hundreds of games together.
Yeah.
Like that was their job. I mean, the biggest example of that isn't even in basketball, but in hockey, the 1980 U.S. Olympic hockey team. Yes, they had a lot of experience together for months and months, but it was nothing compared to the collective experience that the Russian team had.
Yeah.
So you don't deal with it as much because, like you said, Jared, most of these guys are playing somewhere professionally. Well, somewhere, everyone's playing somewhere professionally, but most of these guys are now NBA guys.
Even just in recent basketball history, you go back to like Argentina with the Scolas and Ginobilis, like those guys had this, what was that called, like their golden era or whatever, and they played years. They grew up together and all this. You go back to even just Euroball where Luka won his first one with the Dragic brothers and that kind of thing. Those guys played a lot together. So to me, Americans never going to have that. You're going to have to get by in talent. And last night was you're bigger, you're stronger, you're going to lock down Canada, who has pretty good NBA athletes, but not the same kind. And then once we get into these more serious games, it's just going to be, to me, super fascinating how the defense holds up when you hit, more athletic, well fine-tuned teams.
And it does help. I mean, you do have 3 players from the Celtics, 2 players from the Suns, 2 players from the Lakers. Like, there are teammates on this team. So there is some familiarity.
Yeah.
I was wondering, too, like, especially for a player like Devin Booker, who is so, I'm not going to say demonstrative, but we know what his stance is. During the NBA season, when he walks on the floor, he doesn't have any friends.
Yeah.
So he's like bitter competitors with all of these guys. And then you just got to flip the switch. And now you're high-fiving LeBron and Steph Curry.
Did you see, like, leading into this week, the practice videos? There was one where he, like, I think it was walking by Brandon Pajemski from the Warriors because he's on the select team and booked in, dap him up. But then, like, Kellen, I think, posted another video. It was, like, 20 seconds earlier. He had already dapped him up, so that's why. And someone's like, oh, Book and Pods don't get along. It's like, Book and Edwards don't get along, but then Kellen posts a video of them chatting on the sideline like this. I think he is good about keeping it between the lines. If you're on his team, he's going to be a good teammate.
He still respects winning and respects basketball, Devin Booker.
Absolutely.
Thanks for watching Bickley and Marotta. Click to see the latest Bickley Blast and hit the button in the middle to subscribe to Arizona Sports.